everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Addicts, Season 2. We're on episode 26 for the season. My guest today is Boomer. Boomer, we'll start out like we always do. Just introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll get going.
All right, man. So, first of all, thanks for having me on, Ken. I appreciate it. My name is Jean Boomer Grenier. I am a musician, drummer. I play in two bands, one being basically an original band called Bottoms Up. And I play also drums in an 80s tribute band called Wildside. And I happen to write a book this year that came out June 28th this year about all my paranormal experiences that I've had from the time that I was a child up until probably about last year. And it took me about 3 years to write because I was on the road playing a lot and touring and stuff like that. So a lot of it was done in airplanes and vehicles moving around the country. But I finally got it done. So people seem to be digging it, and hopefully you will too if you check it out.
All right. So that's the link to the book on Amazon. I actually read the book. I highly recommend it. So that's the link, or you can just Google it, I guess. So
it's on my website too. If you go to my name, jeanboomergrenier.com. I have two websites. So the Jean Boomer Grenier is the one for the author for the book stuff, and if you go to the store, I have links on there to. Man, you can get that book all over the world, besides just on Amazon. But there's all kinds of. It's in bookstores. It's all everywhere in the world. You can get it. There's links to it. And then if you're interested in the music thing, I have my other website that's just the letter J, Boomer Grenier, and that's all the music stuff.
So, I mean, like I said, I read it. Of course, you sent me a copy, and I read it. And I like to tell people it's actually one of the best paranormal books I've read, because the personalities actually comes out in it. And that's what I like. When I was reading it, I actually felt like I was experiencing everything with you,
No, thank you. Well, it's funny because people say that, hey, when I was telling them these ghost stories up even 30 years ago, they were like, you got to write a book. And I'm like, man, I don't write books. I don't even barely read books. I swing sticks, playing drums. I did everything by myself, and I had no idea, no help, or had no idea. I really didn't know the first thing about writing a book and how to go about it. So between a lot of YouTube videos and talking to people that have done it, so I'm glad you liked it, and thank you for reading it. It was definitely cathartic in a lot of ways for myself to do, but I never thought, honestly, I'd write a book in my life. It just a bunch of things kind of forced it to happen in a way, or it kind of inspired me. A couple things inspired me to do it. So I'm glad that you liked it, and I'm glad people are digging it, and it's actually helping some people as far as I guess them to come to terms or understandings, maybe stuff that they're going through, whether it be loss of a loved one or maybe just something that's happened in their house and stuff's moving, something like that. So
yeah, I mean, I can relate to what you're saying about writing a book. I've never. I actually just finished my book, and I'm actually in the process of getting it published. And
congratulations!
Thank you. I'm the same way. I never planned on writing a book. I don't even read very many books, so I definitely didn't plan on writing a book. But so many people came up to me and be like, "Well, you need to write a book. You need to write a book." So finally, I wrote a book, and I think mine's along the same line as yours. I wanted my personality to get in there, so and that's how I wrote it. The title of my book is even gets your attention. It makes you laugh. The title of my book is "Don't Buy Generic Batteries." It's probably not a demon.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I play it. It should be published anytime I actually have a meeting Monday with a couple of publishers, I'm probably going to end up self-publishing, but I do have a couple of meetings, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's what I sent it to a couple publishing houses, and I actually was declined by them because they said, oh, the paranormal thing's kind of passe and it's been played out and everybody, we don't want to put the money back and behind it and stuff like that. And I was like, that's fine. That's cool. I don't, I'll figure out how to do it myself. And there's obviously ways to do it. And then I went after a distribution company because I really wanted it not to be just on Amazon. I wanted to be available, to libraries, to basically in stores. I just found out this week that it's on. It's even in Walmart and Target on their website on .com. So I figured that out, how to do that, and it seems to be working out good. And if you need some tips, if you end up doing that, let me know, and I'll send you what I know about it.
We'll discuss that off camera because that's kind of where I'm at right now. I have a couple options I've looked at. One, like you said, is just the Amazon option, and that's not what I want either. I wanted to actually be able to Walmart, Barnes and Noble, everywhere, so people can just go get it.
Absolutely.
So, reading your book, the first thing that caught my attention was, you talked about you realized you had gifts from a young age, and that clicked with me because I was born with abilities too. I do not have a memory where I wasn't able to see and speak to spirits. I mean, and I like the fact that you use the word gifts because that's how nowadays I consider it a gift. When 6-year-old me didn't necessarily consider it a gift, but now that now that I've learned how to use it and come to terms with it, I consider it a gift now. So just walk us through a little bit about your early years, about how you realized that you had the gift, and did it scare you at first, or were you always just walk us through it?
Well, I didn't figure this out until I was in my 20s. So when I was young, and I had when parents think you have an imaginary friend type of thing that we're playing with. Well, I had that, and my mother used to tell my father, she's playing with this kid, and I just called him little boy because I didn't know who he was. He was a little kid like I was, and I'm sure my father thought I was crazy. Thought my mother was crazy. I thought I was crazy at the time, but that's all I knew, and so I didn't even know I had a gift. It just kind of happened, and then as I got older, things, I would have dreams and come to find, and it's weird. I could go through a year, and everybody's supposed to dream every night. That's what they say. I don't know, but I can go through a year and not remember a dream, not remember anything. And then what would happen was I'd have the same dream and I'd remember it, and it was reoccurring. It'd be like 2 or 3 times in a row, sometimes 4 times in a row. And then I would pay attention to it because I found out that those were premonition type dreams. And I had a dream of a huge train crash, and come to find out, a couple weeks later or so, there was a huge Amtrak train crash that was like somewhere down like in the Carolinas. And I'm like, wow, I just had a dream about that. That was kind of weird. I had a dream of and then with friends, and later on, like I said, most of them back then, honestly, in my teens, my middle teens, and my early 20s, I used to party a lot, so I just figured a lot of it was just me being hammered or drunk or something, and I kind of ignored it. I just didn't really pay attention to it. But as I got older, I'm like, wow, there's something to this. There's something to this, and I would randomly call my friends and say, hey, did this happen to you, or did this happen to you? And they'd be like, no, it didn't. And then a few days later, a week later, 2 weeks later, I'd get a phone call going, hey, that just happened to me. How'd you know? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea how I knew, but somehow I did. And so, but I can't control it. I don't have any control over it. If it happens, it happens. Um, somebody thought I should be a medium or a psychic. I'm like, I don't have that ability. That's not what I have. Um, and I couldn't do that anyway because I feel like I was lying to people, and just taking their money. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that do that, and I'm sure there's actually some people that are really gifted that can do it. I'm not that guy, so I just go by what's given to me, and if it shows up, then okay, great. If it doesn't, then I got nothing.
So yeah, so I relate to that too, because early it started. I guess when my gift really started, it came to me. It started out as dreams. I would dream it. And I, I'm one of those people. I don't remember very many of my dreams. So the ones I remember, like you said, they seem to repeat themselves. And so I paid attention. And then sometimes I'd forget about it. And then the event would happen. And then I was like, well, that was my dream. So yeah, so I definitely relate to that. So
Yeah.
and I, people consider me a medium or whatever. I usually I usually use the term clairvoyant when they ask me, but I'm the same way as you are about mediums. I know there's some out there that that legitimately have the gift, but I think the majority of what we see, even in the field, are just people taking advantage of somebody.
1,000%. I believe that 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that everybody's a fake. I'm just saying there's more fakes than all real. That's all I'm saying. And
I agree 100%. 1,000%. I agree because I've actually seen it happen, and I think that those people that are really gifted that can do it are amazing. I actually had one come to my house one time, and this girl blew me away. I mean, it was one of those little parties my wife had. Called somebody and they came over, and my wife and I actually sat across the room from each other. So we told this girl nothing, and she came in and she was telling me stuff about my childhood and stuff that my wife didn't even know, and she nailed it. Everything. I mean, it was amazing. She was amazing. But then you have other people that I've seen it, and I think those people just read books and learn how to read body language. They learn how to read just like a detective. They learn how to read body language. They learn how to things, and they kind of lead people on. And somebody will say, I'm hearing a Paul, and they go, well, I don't have a Paul. Well, it's a P name, and then they go, is it Peter? Yeah, it's Peter. How about that? And people and the thing that's sad about it is that the people that are really looking for answers and help, they just going along with it, and they want to believe that that's really what it is from their loved one or whatever. And I don't think it is. It's just a bunch of bunk from somebody. But and like you said, they're just taking advantage of people and their emotions. And to me, that's wrong. But there are definitely, I believe there are some people that actually have the gift and that are amazing and can do that. I wish I could do that sometimes, because sometimes I'm glad I don't know how to do that. And like in my book, I said, I'm curious of what's on the other side and what's next, but I'm in no rush to get there to find out. So,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have some friends. There's some of the ones that have legitimately have the gift. And one thing that they tell me, one way you can definitely tell if somebody's real or if they're just somebody taking advantage of people, is if you really have the gift, you really have no control over who you're communicating with. Like, and that's where I am. I mean, if I go into somebody's house, I'm doing an investigation. If I go into the house, I may or may not come in contact with who they think I'm going to come in contact with. It may be somebody tied to nothing except for the property, and you can't control that. Who speaks to you is who speaks to you. So if you go into it and you're giving a reading and you're like, oh, I'm going to talk to your dead mom, that's probably not real because you can't control who's going to talk to you.
Right. I agree. I agree 100%. And that's the thing is that, the dreams that I have, I can't control them. I've had, I've actually asked out loud before. So what happens to me is when I'm right about to go to sleep and I'm tired or overtired and I'm almost asleep, but not quite. And I'm still awake is usually when stuff happens. If it's going to happen, if I've heard, and I've been awake and I've heard voices in my ears, like somebody's trying to talk to me at that point, because I'm probably at the most vulnerable spot and probably the most clear headed, without the day's busy crap going on, that's when I hear stuff. And it took me a while to learn. And I actually had to talk to somebody and said, what do I do about this? Because I can't sleep. I have insomnia because I feel like I'm in a ballroom and there's a party going on. And it sounds like, it's like, I can't make out anything, but it just sounds like a lot of people in a bar. And what do I do? And they're like, tell them to stop. Tell them that you don't want to hear it right now. Tell them that now's not the time. And when you want to, you'll do it. And that's how I learned to do it. So I finally could get some sleep. But I have asked, a couple times to see if, almost to test myself to see if it's actually really working. And this isn't in the book, but one of the things that happened, my wife one time said, ask, because I saw her grandmother in my house. And so I know that she was around. And we used to everybody called her Nan. I actually, for the longest time, didn't even know what her real first name was, because everybody referred to her as Nan. And she said, ask her what her middle name is. So I asked before I went to bed. I said, hey, Nan, what's your middle name? Tell me my dream, or tell me and let me know. So the next morning I woke up and I told my wife, I'm like, I didn't get the whole name, but it sounds like an L-A, like a Linda, but it's not Linda. It's like a, and I couldn't, know what it was. And she's like, yeah, she goes, my grandmother's middle name is Lydia. And I'm like, holy crap, I have something, and so that's when I kind of figured out, a little before that, but I kind of figured out that there's something to it,
Yeah, and so I get that, and that's good advice you got to tell them. That's not the time. I have a my case manager on my team. She's gifted like me, but she's still learning how to use her gifts because she got tied to some not reliable people. So I'm teaching her how to use her abilities.
Cool.
So
that's great.
We went to Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky a month ago. One of the most hot. Everybody knows Waverly Hills. So
I want to go there so bad. I want to go there.
So on subject, and then I'll go back to subject.
Yeah.
If you can make it down here in February, you can go with me.
Oh, all right. Well, it might be a little hard depending on, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready out the whole building. Just my team's going. So you're welcome to join us if you can make it.
Really? Oh, thank you very much. That's awesome.
So
anyway, we'll talk about because I just came back from my wife and I went down to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in June, and that was awesome. It was mind blowing. So yeah, that was fun.
Trans-Allegheny is really good. It's one of my favorite places, as a matter of fact. So we went to Waverly, and and of course we got lots of experiences. You can't go to Waverly and not have something go. But when we got to the fourth floor rooftop, she was actually attacked by something and was told that she was told if she went upstairs that it was going to home her. I mean, it actually told her that.
Wow.
So she didn't go downstairs, but she didn't. So my team we're big on protection. We go in protected, and then we do a detachment ceremony before we leave a location. Where she didn't detach before we left, and so for like a week she had something still attached to her.
Following her, yes.
Yeah. So I had to walk her through that, and she kept calling me. She's like, now it's in the shower with me. I'm like, you have to let it know that you're okay with communicating with him, because it was a him. You're okay with communicating with him, but there's boundaries. You know, your shower is a boundary. You
Yeah,
have to communicate with her.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah. Um, so I did. We just dove right in. Usually I have icebreaker questions, so we'll backtrack and I'll ask you my icebreaker questions.
That's okay.
So,
Good. I got
so,
time.
so the first icebreaker question is a two-part question. Uh, it is, what is the favorite location that you've investigated, and then what location do you want to investigate?
I just said them. So my favorite spot was basically Trans Allegheny. We got so much cool footage, video footage, a lot of EVPs. We did the outbuildings in the back. We didn't do the main building. And I honestly, my wife booked the whole thing, so I had no idea what we were doing. I just went there. I just drove, you know. But we got down there, and it was really cool. And the two guides that we had that actually did the investigating too, we became friends with by the end of the night, and we were kind of hanging out and investigating together. So that was cool. But I want to go back. We're going to go back down hopefully next year and investigate the main building and do that, because I want to get enough footage and stuff that it's kind of funny. Everybody keeps saying you got to write another book and drumming up the dead too, and I'm like, listen, I granted I didn't put everything in there in the book, and some of the stuff I forgot, and I remembered later on after doing some of the book signing things and people asking questions. So there is a few more things, excuse me, but I don't think there's enough for me to write a book about my stuff yet, until more stuff happens, because I had 57 years to, or at least until I was, 6 years old, so 50 years to write the first book. But I would like to write a book about my experiences at Trans Allegheny, and maybe have a book that's that, and maybe have a book about my music stuff, that has nothing to do with the paranormal stuff. But I think I have to go down there again to do that. So I would definitely like to investigate that again. But Waverly Hills, I would love to go down there to do that. That or Eastern. I don't think they do it anymore, but Eastern State Penitentiary too would be a good one too.
Yeah. So my bucket list, I have two bucket list locations. There are places I'd really like to get to. One is Alcatraz.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd love to go to
Absolutely.
Alcatraz. And then the other one is a little bit more realistic, just expensive, and that's the Penhurst Asylum. Penhurst is awesome.
Oh, Penhurst. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been investigating for 33 years now, and actually longer than that. I claim 33 years, but I went on my first investigation at 15.
Oh,
Actual.
wow.
So, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. So, and my favorite location is hard to say, because I guess really my favorite locations are like residential locations, because that's what I love, when I can go help somebody. When I go in. So, but I don't talk about those, because when I go to a residential, it's about helping the family, about getting answers.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah. Yeah. So
I basically just started. I mean, I've investigated some stuff with friends, and same thing, kind of residential stuff, but it's more people that I know. I never got into the whole ghost hunting thing. Not that I wasn't interested, because I absolutely was. I just didn't have enough time to do it. I was always, music and playing and stuff. So my weekends and my time, and sometimes months at a time, I was on the road. So I didn't have time to do that. Just until recently is when we decided to go to Trans Allegheny. But we've done investigations for friends, and actually one of my band members' house that we did one at. But and I look at that, that's private, because that's their thing. I'm not going to start talking about stuff that happened at their house. You know what I mean? Especially without permission to do that. But I would like to do some more So like Alcatraz, it's funny because for probably about 30 years, I've always wanted to go to Alcatraz, more so just for the history of it and to visit it. And honestly, when I was a kid, seeing the Scorpions video for No One Like You, when they did it at Alcatraz, and the whole thing about the escape from Alcatraz and all that stuff. But then later on, I'm like, wow, that'd be really cool to do because of the paranormal thing, at the paranormal aspect of it too. So I don't know, maybe someday we can do that together.
That'd be cool. So yeah, I'm a big history guy too. I think it kind of goes with it. Usually, if you're a paranormal investigator, you have a love of history. So the thing that I like about the people don't think about Alcatraz. Everybody always thinks about Alcatraz, the prison, but before it was a prison, it was a military base, and before it was a military base, it was a Native American colony. So there's so much history
There's
there.
a lot of history. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm you can't tell by looking at me, but I'm actually 1/8 Cherokee. So I love the
really?
Native American history. Matter of fact, my the belief is, the theory is anyway, the reason I got my gift is my great grandmother was a Cherokee medicine woman. And of course,
wow.
And of course,
That's cool.
Yeah, so whether that's actually connected or not, I don't know. But it's a cool connection anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I apparently from what I'm told from one of my cousins that I have from the French Canadian side of me, I have a little bit of Iroquois Indian. I thought it was originally Micmac, but I guess it's Iroquois. But again, not enough to own a casino or or to get the tax write off or anything. But it's probably like a 0.5%, if that. So I don't even really tell people about it, but I was told that's in my family.
Yeah, I mean, being from where I'm from in Western Kentucky, we pretty much had every tribe in the time, So, I mean, my cousin went and got the records that shows that we're Cherokee, and so we have that. But I actually did a family tree for my grandmother's side, and I actually come to find out they were also probably about 1/8 or 1/16 Choctaw.
Oh, wow.
And my grandmother was like, I didn't even know that. I'm like, yeah, I was like, well, it's in the records, Ancestry.com helps. But it's just interesting. So, like I said, I don't talk too much about residential, especially without the permission. But that's really my favorite thing to do. But unfortunately, being here in Western Kentucky, I live in not only the Bible Belt, we live in the heart of the Bible Belt. We have a church like in every corner.
Yeah.
So it's more open to talk about now, thanks to like ghost adventurers and ghost hunters and all that. But it's still kind of taboo, it's still not talked about as much. So I actually host the Paracon. We don't even call it a Paracon. We call it a Paranormal Expo. But I host the Paracon in Mayfield, Kentucky every year, just to try to get the education out more. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah, this is our third year doing it this year, and I'm already planning on next year. Next year, I actually got some big names coming into Mayfield. Joe Frankie's going to be part of it next year and stuff. So maybe you can fly in and be part of it. You can hype up your books.
Yeah, let me know. I actually just did one of those Paranormal Expo things. Actually, at the end of July, I did one of those too. So I'm looking into doing some of those. So yeah. I mean, keep me up to date on it. You never know. I would love to.
Yeah, I would definitely keep it touch better because to me, I don't make a lot of money doing the expos, but to me that I know some people put them on to make money, but that's not why I do it. I put it on to promote the paranormal and to educate people. So yeah,
Yep, excellent.
yeah. So
That's kind of why I wrote the book. That's why I wrote the book. For the same reason.
yeah.
Well, one of a few reasons, but yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your investigation style. That's my second icebreaker.
Okay.
How do you investigate? Do you consider yourself like old school investigator or you scientific investigator? Just how do you investigate?
Um, I guess probably a little bit of both, but like you have the typical thing, the spirit box. We got when we were down at Trans Allegheny, we spirit box had a lot of EVPs from that. Video cameras. I never do anything where it's provoking. I don't do that because just with the episodes I've had here at my own house with stuff. When I actually said, I don't believe that you're here, I got thrown down the stairs. So I'm like, all right, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the provoking things. But, we ask normal questions, try to be respectful. At Trans Allegheny, we did the whole, the light, flashlight thing. But mostly video, the REM pod and the spirit box type of thing. That's usually what. Every once in a while, too, the dowsing rods. My wife has some dowsing rods that she's really good with, and so we use those too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I investigate hybrid style. When people ask me how my team does it, the little catchphrase I tell everybody is we do old school technique with new school technology. So obviously I rely on my gifts, but I use my gifts as a guide to tell me what I need to set up and stuff, especially if we're doing a residential, because it's a lot easier for me to come up to a homeowner and be like, this is what I captured on camera, or this is what I captured on the REM pod, or, it's a lot easier to show them that evidence than to go up to the homeowner, so So,
exactly. And that's basically it. I mean, that's a good way of putting it. Kind of old school with new technology,
Yeah. I'm actually today working on my portal box. I actually built it out of old amplifier.
Oh, really?
See it?
Oh, look at that. That's cool. Black Star amplifier. Yeah. So are you a guitar player too?
Yeah. Well, I have mixed feelings about portal box, to be honest. I mean, I know a lot of people think, oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But, really the only thing it is, it's really just an amplifier for your spirit box. I use it a lot of times in my investigations, to be honest, because it looks better on video than the spirit box does.
Right.
But it does, I guess it does technically take out some of the static you get in the portal box.
So it ends up being kind of a cleaner type sound.
Yeah. That's pretty much the benefit of using it. The disadvantage of using it, to be honest, is they're very expensive. I built that one, so if you try to go buy one, you're looking at $200 or more. Obviously,
I've actually seen them. I've seen them between $300 and $500.
Yeah, easily. So that one, I probably have. I mean, I already have an amplifier, so I probably have $50 in it. So,
Yeah, but you get to know how to do it. You get to know how to make it. So which is good.
Right. Yeah, you can't just. Yeah. That's like I also make, the trip wires. You see the EMF.
Yeah.
I also make those, and the reason I started making those, the same reason. If you go try to buy one on Ghost Shop or whatever, you're looking at like $200. I can make one, sell it to you for $50 and still make money. So,
wow.
So that's my thing. I don't want to rip off anybody, and I don't want to be ripped off either. So if I can make something that works just as good as the one you're buying $200 for, I'm going to build it myself. And
Of course, that's a no-brainer. We actually, one of the girls that was paranormal, well, the guide at Trans Allegheny, she had one of those, and that was I had only seen it on TV and stuff like that. I never or videos. I'd never seen it in person, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Those are really cool.
I'm going to try something different. And we actually have an investigation tomorrow. So tomorrow, my investigation, we collaborated with another team a month ago, and they were doing the Estes method. And when they did the Estes method, they took the tripwire and put it around and made a circle around themselves. So if anything crossed the tripwire while they were doing the Estes method, the tripwire went off. So I'm going to try that Saturday tomorrow during an investigation. I like learning new techniques. That's just like you know um, one of my good friends last season when they were on the show, they made the statement that the most important thing in the paranormal field is to always be learning. And I think that's good advice. The way I like to say it, this is what I tell people all the time. I'm like, in the paranormal field, you either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. And I don't want to be rotting, so I'm always going to be, I'm always going to be growing. So yeah, I mean,
Well, I think that's actually a good thing for any anything, to always learn, whether you're a mechanic, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a musician, I mean, that's just 101. You can always learn from something, and why not better yourself, at whatever you're doing.
I mean, like I said, I've been investigating forever. The field has changed so much since 1989 when I went on my first investigation. 1987. It was 1987 when I went on my first. I was 13, so 1987, my first investigation. So when I went on my first investigation, and I actually wrote about this in my book, I went to this place. This place still amazes me. It's still there. It's a trailer. And in '87, it had already been abandoned for 5 years. So it's been abandoned since 1982. So the backstory to this trailer is it was a murder-suicide. The husband got drunk and killed his wife and then killed himself. So,
Wow.
so the house has been abandoned. At that time, the house has been abandoned for 5 years. But for some reason, and I know this for a fact because my dad actually lived in the same trailer park. For some reason, at exactly midnight, every day or every morning, however you want to look at it, at exactly midnight, the lights in the living room and the air conditioner would kick on.
Really?
Because no power because it's been abandoned for 5. Yeah. So, but yeah, and I mean, I would always go on my walks because I was an athlete back in the day, so I'd always go for my runs at 11:45, so I could go by the trailer at midnight. So that was the first. So that was the first place we decided to investigate. It was me and my best friend at the time. His name was Tracy. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But me and Tracy, yeah, he passed away the year after we graduated. He was a welder. And he fell asleep driving home. So yeah, so I lost him in 1993. He was our best friend from kindergarten till he passed away. Anyway, yeah. So, but I mean, the interesting thing is, well, let me finish with that, and then I'll go back to. So all of our friends, of course, they were going to like the local haunted attractions. They were going to the haunted houses, the judgment houses, all that stuff. But me and Tracy decided we were going to spend Halloween at this trailer. So the only thing we had back then, we had a flashlight, a voice recorder, a notebook and pencil. That's all we had. And now you have all this fancy stuff. And that's still. I actually went back and visited the trailer last month when I finished my book because somebody suggested that that'd be a good closing wood to go back to where it all began. So I actually
Yeah,
went back there, and it's still there. Of course, there's weeds going all over now and
of
stuff.
course.
But
Yeah,
yeah, the light still kicks on at midnight.
really.
So, yep,
And you saw that's crazy. That's unbelievable.
it's nuts. So it is. It's really crazy. So that's kind of where my story began, and then back to like I was saying about Tracy. Uh, so me and Tracy, like I said, we were best friends from kindergarten until. Besides the paranormal, we had two other things that we loved. We loved Star Wars. Of course, we were kids of that generation, and
Who
then,
did?
and then we
Who didn't? You know.
and then we loved fishing. So we actually wrote a newsletter on fishing when we were teenagers, and they put it in the local gun shop for people.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
so you know, so but I say that and say this. Even though Tracy's no longer with us physically, sometimes he reminds me that he's still there. Like for my birthday this year, we went to the Monroe House, the mysterious row house. We investigated it for my birthday this year, and as we walked into the front of the house, on the table where you sign in, there was a fishing lure on the table. No reason for it to be there, but a fishing
Sure.
lure. I was like, that's just Tracy telling me he's with me. I was like, it's all
That's
good.
awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the book. Uh,
Okay.
so so you know, I was addicted to the book from the beginning. I, I, let's start out. Let's talk about you when you experienced your your dead uncle. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, to me, that's fascinating because you said it wasn't
Okay.
really Aaron Richard; it was actually him. So that takes it to a different level. So
Yeah, that was actually the very first ghost, so to speak, that I ever saw. So what happened was my my mother uh, was always ill, so she didn't travel down with my dad and I, and that uncle that I saw, um, him and another uncle and an aunt all lived together in a three tenement, and they owned the building. And I come from a big family. My dad was number 8 out of 16 kids. So um, those three or my two uncles and my aunt used to travel all the time, and they'd always be gone and would get postcards saying, "Hey, we're in Egypt," or "Hey, we're in Las Vegas," or "Hey, we're in Zimbabwe," or wherever. They went everywhere together, um, and they happened to be in New York, and my uncle Arthur, used to walk with a cane, and he was kind of like all my cousins, a lot of my cousins and myself. I probably said, honestly, I probably said maybe, I don't know, 20 sentences to him the whole time I knew him. Only because he always had like a resting bitch face. He always looked pissed off. He always looked mad, and he never acted that way. But they happened to be on one of their trips, and they were in New York, and my other uncle saw my uncle Arthur get up and use the bathroom and go back to bed, but he wasn't using his cane. He didn't use his cane to do it, and he always had his cane. And then when they actually woke up, my uncle Arthur had passed away. And so when I saw him, I have my father's sister, one of my aunts, is actually a Catholic nun, and she was up in Montreal, and she handled whatever they did up at the convent and stuff. I think she did all the bookkeeping and whatever they do up there. And um, so she was home to visit. And so my dad and myself went down to visit, and we were at the apartment. And my dad, being I got my name from the French side, my dad family. So they were all sitting around a table, and I'll see if I can try to paint the picture for you. So when you walked through the door, there was a kitchen table right there, and there was two chairs that were up against the wall, and that's where I sat. I sat in a chair, and my father and a bunch of my aunts and uncles were sitting around the table, and they were all talking French, and they would. I'm horrible at French, but back then when I was younger, I could kind of figure out what they were talking about a little bit. I could get the gist. So behind the table, there was a long counter vanity in the kitchen with, the cupboards and stuff like that. And at the end of the vanity, there was another door right behind the table that was a bathroom. So if you figure sitting here looking straight, I could see the bathroom kind of to the left, the long vanity, and my aunts and uncles and my father sitting around the table. If you walked straight through the kitchen along the vanity and you go into the first bedroom, which was my Uncle Arthur's bedroom. And so I happened to be just sitting there in the chair, and he had passed away almost, I think it was around the same month, but a year before. And I saw him come out of his bedroom, walk right through the kitchen, right behind my aunts, my everybody talking at the kitchen table, and go into the bathroom. And he was plain as day. He was like you and I sitting here. There was no apparition. I couldn't see through him. He was just like he was walking. So I started getting an anxiety attack. I didn't know what that was at the time, but and I'm looking around at my aunts and uncles and my father, and I'm like, "Are you seeing this?" He just walked out of the room, and and they didn't break conversation. Nobody looked, nobody saw it, just me. And he went into the bathroom, and then I couldn't see him anymore for, a little bit. And then he walked out of the bathroom, walked right behind my aunt, the nun, was sitting in that chair, and walked right across the kitchen, went back into his bedroom. And I was blown away. I'm like, I can't even, I was in shock. So I must have had a look on my face where one of my aunts, the one that actually lived in the apartment, said, "Hey, Jean, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right. I don't feel very good." So she's like, "Well, why don't you come in and lay down?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm fine. I'll be all right." And she's like, "No, come lay down." And she came and grabbed my hand and walked me into my uncle's bedroom and said, "Here, why don't you lay on the bed?" So now, if you walk through the door from the kitchen straight, my uncle's bed was perpendicular like this way. And then if you were laying in the bed, straight ahead was another door that was his workshop. And he used to do string art and stuff where you put nails in a picture and then use different color string and make pictures. He made me a Superman or something one time. And so I laid on the bed, but I laid on the bed not the correct way because I didn't want to be facing the door, his workshop. I laid on the bed sideways so I could see out into the kitchen wherever my aunts and uncles were and my father. And I just kind of laid there, and my aunt's like, "Well, lay on the bed correctly and stretch out and lay down." No. And in my head, I'm thinking, no, I'm laying this way because if I got to go fast, I want to move, and I'm hitting the doorway. So I laid there for a few minutes, and I kind of had the feeling that, when you get the feeling that somebody's watching you, and you get that kind of feeling, whether they're there or not. Sometimes you feel like somebody's watching you and there's nobody there. But I kind of had a feeling, so I kind of looked to my left, and I saw my uncle standing in the doorway, just as plain as day. And the door was open. He was just standing there, and he didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything to him, and he just smiled, and that's all he did. Was he smiled, and I can't remember ever seeing him smile ever, like holidays, Christmas. But I never saw him smile. He just was so stoic and just so. He was almost like a statue. The guy just never had a different expression on his face. It was odd, and he just smiled at me. And right when he did that, all the anxiety, all the fear, maybe all the stress headache that I was getting, because I felt like my head was in a vice and just being compressed. All that went away, and he just kind of backed up, kind of almost like he floated in a way, but I couldn't see the floor because the bed was in there, so I couldn't see. I don't know if he backed up, walked, but it looked like he kind of floated backwards, and then the door slowly closed to his room, and I went back in the kitchen, and my aunt's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." But so what happened after that was my aunt, the one that's a nun, wanted to visit my mom. So they came up to my house the following weekend so they could visit with my mom, because again, my mom had a disability, so she wasn't able to travel a lot, sometimes. Um, so they came up to the house, and when I got home that night with my dad, I asked my dad, I'm like, "Did you see Uncle Arthur?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I saw him walk out of, I saw him walk out." And he's like, "You did." My dad was very Catholic religious and didn't believe anything he couldn't touch or see. If he didn't see it, it didn't exist. And so the first thing he asked me was like, "Are you on drugs?" I'm like, "I'm not on drugs." I'm like, "No, I saw him." He's like, "There's no way you could have. He's dead. He's gone. There's no way you could have." And I'm like, "I saw him." So I got home and I told my mother. My mother believed me, and I was kind of bummed out that my father didn't believe me. I was a little bummed out about that, but I told my mother. And when my aunt and uncle, or I should say aunts, because the nun came up, the three of them came up to my house, and my mother said, "Why don't you ask?" We called her sister. Her name was actually Antoinette, but nobody called her Antoinette. So we just call her sister because of obviously a nun sister, and she was a sister of all of them too. So, so my mother said to me, "Ask sister." Or tell the story and stuff, because I really, honestly, I had never seen anything like that, so I thought it was nuts. I thought maybe I didn't know if I actually saw him. But I know I wasn't dreaming because I was wide awake. As it was happening, I still heard my father and my aunts and uncles talking, so I wasn't sleeping, and I know I didn't imagine it. So I asked my aunt when she came up, and I said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And my aunt, the nun sister, we went into a separate room, and I told her, I said, "The other night when I didn't feel good?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "I saw Uncle Arthur walk out of his bedroom into the bathroom, and then I saw him walk out of the bathroom back into the bedroom. And nobody saw it. Only I saw it." And I said, "Am I crazy? Am I nuts? I don't know." And she said, "No." She goes, "I'm staying in his room while I'm visiting." And she's like, "I've seen him twice." She saw him one morning. She woke up and she saw him in his workshop door. And then there was another day she was walking out into the kitchen, and there was a long hallway. If you go to the right, there was a long hallway that went into the parlor, the den, whatever you want to call it, TV room. And she saw the back of him walking into the room and turn the corner and walk in there. So she's like, "No, I've seen him twice." So at that point, right then, I'm like, well, first of all, my aunt wouldn't lie to me. Second of all, a Catholic nun wouldn't lie to me. And thirdly, she validated what I saw. And by that religion, usually they don't believe in stuff like that. But she did. She told me she saw it and saw him twice. So at that point, I'm like, that's it. That's the defining thing that made me believe in the paranormal and that something exists after ghosts, whatever, ghosts, demons, people, whatever it ends up being. Because at the time I was like 12 or 13. So I really didn't know about any of this stuff. It was just all completely new to me. But that was the defining moment where I'm like, I got to pay attention to this, and got interested in the paranormal because that was something I'd never seen before,
Yeah, I mean, I completely get that. I had an experience where she was my great aunt, but she was more like a another grandmother. Uh, she was my Memoirs is what I call her, my dad's mom. It was her sister, and
Yep.
she always like anytime I went over to my mom and papa's house, and they would always take us out to eat. But growing up, I I thought it was just Papa spoiling his grandkids. Now I know it's because my Mimo couldn't cook, but that's beside the point. That's beside the point. But she would always go out to eat with us. Whether it was McDonald's or to show me or Moonland restaurant, wherever we went. So she'd go shopping with us. She'd go to the movies with us. She'd go out. So she was basically just like another grandmother. And so she got really sick, and she was at the hospital. I was 12, 13 at the time. So I was staying in Morrison Pampers, and she passed. She she passed, and but nobody knew it yet because she passed at the hospital. Well,
Oh,
came to me.
okay.
She came to me, and like you said, it was an apparition. It was her. She came to me, and she sat down on the bed, and she's like, "Kid," she's like, "I've passed." She's like, "But don't be sad, don't be scared." She's like, "I stopped by here to tell you to not be afraid of your gift, to use it because it was given to you." And that's what. And then she left. She didn't just vanish. She walked out of the room and
Yeah.
vanished like in the hallway and stuff.
Right.
And and that stuck with me out of all my experiences because they used it was apparition. It was a person. And then the other thing is, uh, she told me, "I know you're gifted and use it." So I was like, and that was really the point where I made the decision to stop being afraid of my gift and actually learning how to use it. And which wasn't easy in 1987
Oh,
in
sure.
Western Kentucky. It was not easy. I actually started reading everything I could read. Uh, so I started checking out like every book, every book. Every book in the library and stuff. I checked out every book by the Warrens, every book on parapsychology. Me and Tracy actually got called down to the principal's office because we would check out these books. The principal asked me, the principal asked me, he was like, the principal was like, "Should we be concerned?" I'm like, "Why should we be concerned?" I'm like I'm shooting up the school or anything. I'm trying to learn how to use my gift. But so yeah. So all right. So
Yeah, but you're lucky back then at that time that somebody didn't call you a witch or a warlock or whatever it is, because back in the Bible Belt, that's like you said earlier, that's very taboo.
yeah, I was told a lot growing up, a lot, and I mean a lot. I was told that I was a tool of the devil and I was going to hell. I was told that a lot. And what was interesting is I went to church growing up. I mean, I was that kid. There was a Sunday night, Wednesday night. I was at church. I will say, disclaimer, a little bit of a disclaimer. It wasn't always actually because to be at church. It was a lot of times it was to escape the abuse and stuff at home.
Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that.
Hey, it made me who I am. So I mean, I wouldn't want to do it again.
No.
But yeah, and my kids, it was my stepdad, and my kids don't have anything to do with my stepdad. They didn't, because I didn't have a choice, but my kids did. So
Yeah, good.
so I mean, but it wasn't all bad. Like my high school sweetheart, if that's what you want to call her, I met her at church because she also her 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 whole life was just as messed up as mine, if not even more messed up. And so we just connected. I mean, we never really discussed what was going on, but we just knew it, and we knew we needed each other. So I mean, we dated for
Well,
like
that's good
6 years.
though.
So
Yeah, that's
so
good.
yeah, I mean, and I mean, I consider myself a Christian today. I mean, I consider myself a Christian. So yeah, I even got the born again tattoo.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but and I'm an educated investigator. I mean, obviously, I'm experienced, but I'm also educated. I have a degree. I have a degree in parapsychology from West Georgia University.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I have 2 degrees in theology from Global Bible College. I'm a trained demonologist under the Old Catholic Church, Bishop Long. I actually took demonology classes under him. So I mean, I'm educated too. And
That's
with that
awesome. That's great.
with that education came knowledge. So now when people try to come at me and be like, "Oh, you're a tool of the devil," they like to use Ephesians and Ezekiel and what those verses say in the King James translation. What people have to understand, first of all, is the King James translation is a paraphrase translation. It's not. It's not a literal translation. It's paraphrased. So, in other words, a bunch of people sat around the room and they're like, "Well, this is what it means to me." And the other thing that's interesting about the King James version, or as I like to call it, the old King Jimmy version, the it was written the way that King James wanted it to be written was like a Shakespeare play. So there was not. It's definitely there's no literal translation in there. So anyway, the verse says in the King James version, it says, "Do not speak to the living dead, because you do not know if they're good or evil." That's what it says. But the problem with that is, it's a paraphrase version. The actual Latin translation says, and you notice the difference because some key words are missing in the King James version. So the actual Latin version says, do not talk to the living dead unless you are trained or educated, because you will not know if they're good or evil. So you lose something in the translation there. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So people can argue with me all they want to. I don't mind arguing with them because that's one battle I'm going to win. Because this is what I tell people, and I don't judge anybody. I don't care if you're a Christian. That's not my job. I do not want that job. I do not want to be the one to judge anybody. But this is what I tell people. So my gifts were given to me from God. The God don't make mistakes. He gave them to me to use. So how's that bad?
Yeah, right. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. So real fast before I go into the next thing, anybody that's watching the podcast on Get Haunted, you're going to want to switch over to Paranormal Addicts, which is that link right there, because I'm going to cut the Get Haunted link in about a minute and a half, because we got another show coming on at 7:00. So I'm going to keep talking. Me and Bruno's going to keep talking. But if you want to watch us, you're going to have to switch over to either YouTube or Paranormal Addicts. So, matter of fact, it looks like everybody's watching us on Paranormal Addicts anyway. So, but I always say that just for the people that do watch us or Get Haunted. So, all right. So yeah. So I was at. So I actually, like I said, I've been investigating for 33 years now. Actually longer than that, but 33. That's when I turned 18. So that's when I moved away, and that's when I really got to dig in. So that's why I say 33. Really, it's probably 38 if you want to get technical. But I did lose 3 years of investigating because I had to have brain surgery and spine surgery. So I've only been back like 4 years. And, before I have a incurable neurological condition that causes you to have pain every day of your life, and the brain surgery is just. If the brain surgery is successful, it slows down the progression of the disease. If it's not successful, you can actually die from it. My wife's cousin's wife had the same surgery I did the week before I had mine, and she actually died on the table.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
I did not die on the table, but it
obviously
actually
because right here.
maybe I'm a ghost, but it did increase my symptoms. I now have seizures and blackout spells. So
I'm sorry to hear that, dude.
Well, I don't let it dictate my life. I'm going to do what I can do until I can't do it. I actually wrote in a book, as long as I can walk into a room with a voice recorder, I'm going to keep investigating. So that's just me.
Good for you. That's the way to do it, Because
Yeah.
I'll tell you something too. I'll tell you something. Some people know, a lot of people don't know. So I have a situation too, where um, I have CKD, so I have chronic kidney disease, and technically I'm in stage 3A kidney failure. And I found this out, well, five, maybe 6 years ago now. So by changing, so I was constantly getting like gout symptoms because my kidneys weren't, filtering out fast enough. And I still get it. I still get gout here and there, but it slowed down because I changed my diet, and I don't drink anymore. I haven't eaten a hamburger or pork, or I can only eat like chicken and turkey, like one portion a day. I can't have more than that because of the will build up the uric acid in my body. My uric acid in my body is constantly high. So because of that, I was actually forced to stop touring with the band, doing that, because when you're on the road, let's face it, you eat like crap, you sleep like crap, because a lot of stuff is impossible. I mean, I tried, and the other thing too is dehydration. So by playing shows and playing as much as and hard as I was, and touring and stuff, I was dehydrating myself. So no matter how much water I was drinking, it just wasn't enough. So I had to stop doing it. So, and I understand, and so the same way with you, which should be an inspiration to people too, that have any kind of medical disability or any kind of disability, is that don't let the disability rule you. You rule the disability. And I'm still playing because I'm not playing as much as I used to. But even with Wildside, there's 2 drummers, and I'm thankful that the band and the other drummer, Everett, allowed me to still be in the band, because they could have said, well, hey, you can't do a full show, so see ya, you're gone. And they don't do that, and which I'm very grateful for, because I can still have my passion of playing music and things like that. Some of the reason why I wrote the book too, just in case I wasn't ever able to play again. I wanted to see if I could have something to fall back on with the book, and thankfully I kind of do. But the same way that you're doing your passion of investigating and staying with the paranormal and doing everything you do, especially to help people in residential situations, that's admirable. I commend you 1,000% for that. It's but so, and the thing too, Ken, is everybody has something.
Yep.
Everybody has something. We just don't know what that. People don't talk about. We don't know what they have, and it's really some of it. If they don't talk about, it's not our business. But everybody has something in their life that could be considered a disability or an obstacle. That every day, you get up in the morning and back to work. Do what you got to do, and that's what we're doing. That's what you do. That's what I do, and hopefully other people will do the same thing. But I commend that because if you have a passion for something, whatever it is, do not let a sickness or disability or anything take any kind of passion or your hobbies or anything you love away. Rule your disability or rule the situation, and do the best you can to change it so you can move forward, and that's what I do. I just do everything I can do to try to protect my kidneys, so I don't hopefully end up on a dialysis, or don't have to have a kidney transplant or that stuff. And fingers crossed, but I'm doing the best I can, and like you, that's all you can do too.
Yeah. And you like you said, you gave up touring and stuff. I actually gave up before I was born with my condition. I had my symptoms all my life. I used to, the warning signs, a headache worse than a migraine. It's a headache through your whole head and your neck, and
Wow.
So I had that all my life, and I would pass out. There's 200 symptoms, so everybody's different. But the headache is like the warning sign.
That's what that means. So yeah.
Yeah. And then Another symptom is heat sensitivity, and I used to pass out playing baseball and stuff. And matter of fact, I went to college on a baseball scholarship, and I was a catcher, and they had to put a water coolant
Awesome.
system in my vest.
Oh
And
wow, that's awesome.
that's pretty common now, but in 1993 it was not common.
Right.
And and then after then I joined the military and I was a medic, and then after I got out of the military,
Thank you for serving.
it was a pleasure. And then after the military, I became a pro MMA fighter, and, uh, and obviously I can't be a pro MMA fighter anymore because of
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so and sometimes it bothers me because my kids never got to see me fight, and sometimes I'm like, maybe one more fight, and I'm like, nah, we can't do that. And
No.
but
No.
and I do advocate. My condition is called Chiari malformation. Is what it's called. I am an advocate for it. I actually host, like Relay for Life in Cancer. Chiari's got the Chiari Walk Across America, and I'm actually the Kentucky representative for that. So I actually do a
Awesome.
walk. And what's interesting about Chiari is it's actually more common than pancreatic cancer, but nobody knows about it. Not
Wow.
even not even doctors. Like my neurosurgeon, who is a Harvard educated neurosurgeon. I mean, so he's like top of his field. He told me they spend 3 hours of class talking about Chiari malformation.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and the number one the number one cause of death with Chiari is suicide.
Well, you need to be around for a long time, so don't let that happen. Don't ever do that.
I'm not, me and suicide, we don't another friend of mine who's no longer with us either, his name was Eric. And me and Eric, we were both in abusive childhood, so that's how we bonded.
Yep.
He actually got killed in a car wreck. He
Huh.
was in the National Guard. He had just it was a week before his 21st birthday, and his dream was he always wanted to go into uh, full duty military, active duty military, but he didn't qualify out of high school. But he qualified to be National Guard. So he was full-time National Guard. The day that he got killed in, it was a convoy that he got killed in. The day that he got killed in that, he actually got called to active duty. He was actually going to go active duty.
Oh
He
wow.
didn't know that. So anyway, but this is what he always said about suicide, and it always stuck with me. He always said that suicide is a permanent answer to
For a temporary
a temporary
situation.
problem. Yep, yep.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yep, yeah. And I'm not going to lie, especially on camera. In my teenage days, when there's the abuse and stuff, I attempted suicide more than once. Am I proud of that? No, but it's the truth, and I, I and I know there's other people in that situation, so they can get something from that hopefully. And so anyway, so yeah. But like you said, everybody's going through something, and I want everybody to know, especially the guys out there, because this don't get talked about enough. Men's mental health is a real thing. We struggle just like everybody else. We, for some reason, growing up, especially in mine and your era, you didn't talk about it. Those days are gone. It's okay to talk about it. And,
Yeah.
and if you don't have anybody
Well,
comfortable, talk to me about it. I'll listen.
well, that's that's another reason why I wrote the book, because I went through, I'll be straight up, because I went through a major depression, and I didn't realize what depression was. I just figured, if you're depressed and you're bummed out, find something that makes you happy,
Yep.
and it doesn't work that way. And I went through a major depression, and I'm not going to, I had a couple, not too long ago, I had a little bout with a suicide thing. That a lot of people don't know, and I guess now they do, but I don't talk about it. But it's the reason why that I wrote the book was because when my mother passed away, my mother passed away, and I had about 15 close friends and another, my friend's mother passed away too. Um, and it was like 15 people. I was losing like one, sometimes two a month. And I really, it, it beat the shit out of me, and I got really depressed, and I started not caring about other stuff, and I started not caring about, work, the band. I'm like, any monkey can swing sticks and play in a band. Anybody can do my job. And I just felt completely not needed and not necessary, and not important. And it was all from, losing my mom. And I realized that after the fact, um, my mom gave me a couple signs that is the reason why I said I got to write this book, because I don't ever want anybody, especially people that I know, but anybody in general, I don't want anybody to ever feel the way I felt, and to even consider consider that, because it's not the answer. People think that you're a coward if you do it. I don't think you're a coward. I don't look at it that way, because when that's going on, you don't know what's going on. It's amazing how, your mind can take over your body, can take over thought patterns. And everything that was going on at that point was not me, was not how I think, was not how I view things. And it was just dark. It just grabbed a hold of me. It was just dark. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it, but I didn't want people to go through this, at least people that lost someone, a loved one, a family member, a friend, and go into depression. And there's people that I know right now, as we talk, that a cousin of mine, who lost her mom, over a year ago, and she's still depressed. And another friend of mine, going through the same thing, depressed, and talking about that type of stuff. Some of them not, some of them are, some of them aren't, but I don't want people to feel that way. And that's why I kind of wrote the book, because I'm like, there's another perspective on loss and of people passing away, whether it be family members, friends, or what have you, that I like to use two analogies, if I can. So the two analogies I like to use is, if you don't like the way you see things perspective wise in your life, it's kind of like looking out a window. If you look out a window and you're living in Harlem or the Bronx, and you look out the window and you see a brick wall because there's another building that's there, and it's a really crappy view. Go look out a different window. It's a different perspective. It's a different view, and you might see the Bronx Zoo. Well, that makes me happy. I like animals. I like the zoo. Look at a different window, and there's always a reason too. I think there's a reason why a windshield is larger than a rearview mirror, because you get more of a picture of where you should be going and what you should be doing with your life and where you want to go and what you want to do, than looking at a mirror that's this big of some place you've already been. Move forward, and that's how I look at things, and that's how I learned to be able to move on. And I'm not gonna say that I'm happy about the people that left and that passed or whatever. I'm not happy. I don't like it. I hate it. But it's a way to, I guess, deal with it better.
And that's a good thing. I mean, I lost my mom too, and that's the hard thing. My mom was not only my mom, but she was my best friend. And so that was hard. And she passed. She was only 49 when I lost her.
Wow.
And when I lost her, that's when I was still doing the MMA thing. So I got married to my first wife. We got married, and I was living outside. I was living on the Indiana side of Louisville, or as they like to call it, the sunny side of Louisville. I lived on the Indiana side because it was cheaper, so that's where I was living. And so I met my first wife, and and the whole marriage was based on sex, but that's beside the point.
That's all right.
Obviously, it did.
Well, that's not a right for
Obviously,
marriage, but you
yeah,
probably
yeah,
should have kept her
yeah.
as a girlfriend.
It was good. It was good for about 2.5 years. But anyway, so we got married, and so all my family came up. It was a big wedding. We had like we had like 6 bridesmaids and 6 groomsmen and all that. So my whole family came up. Not my whole family, but a lot of my family came up. Um, her dad, her dad was in a band in high school. So the guy that was the leader of the band, he actually played. He actually did the music for our wedding. It was a big deal, and so I took 3 weeks off, for honeymoon and all that stuff. So we took a real honeymoon. We went down to Gatlinburg, and we spent a week in Gatlinburg, and mostly in the room. But that's beside the point. So after we got after we left Gatlinburg, we uh, we decided to come back. We decided to stop by Paducah, Kentucky, which is my hometown. We decided to spend a week there to visit with my family that couldn't make it to the wedding and so forth and so on. So we actually stayed at my mom's house, and it was a good week. We had everything, and so after a week, I decided to go back to Indiana because I needed to start training for a fight I had coming up. So we left home. We come back up, but the next morning, at approximately 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, my brother called me and told me my mom had passed away.
Oh,
And I called him a liar on the phone. I was like, "That's not funny. That's not it." And then my grandmother was actually on the phone. And it's like he's kidding. Well, apparently my mom had actually passed away 3 hours earlier. But just waited
okay.
until they just waited until 7 o'clock to tell me. And which obviously I'm still not very happy about, but that's beside the point. Their reasoning was there was nothing I could do. My reasoning was I could have been on the way home since I live 3 hours away. And
Right.
so yeah, so that was how I found out my mom passed away. And then once I started driving home, they decided I need to be the one to call everybody and tell them my mom had passed away. I'm like, I'm driving from Louisville.
Wow.
So anyway, and then of course I was legally the next of kin, so I'm the one that had to say yes and no to everything at the funeral. And even though we all made the decision together, it was me, my 2 brothers, um, my grandmother, and my aunt. We were all there together. But since I was the next of kin, I'm the one that had to say yes and no. They were getting mad at me, like so. Anyway, so for a while, and sometimes still, but not as often anymore. But for a while, I actually blamed my mom passing on myself, and this is why. So I was the favorite. I was the mama's boy, and so when we left, as far as I know, everything was okay. So that's why we left. Uh, Obviously, I wouldn't have left if my mom was sick. But so apparently, after we left, she actually had like I guess 2 heart attacks. She actually called
Wow.
the ambulance. She actually called the ambulance twice. The first time she called the ambulance, she convinced them not to take her to the hospital. So then, like 2 hours later, she called the ambulance again, and they took her to the hospital. But it was too late. And so me, I I used to tell myself that if I was still there, I could have
They could have
made
done
it go to
something.
the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah, I could have made it go to the
Yeah.
hospital the first time. So but uh, uh, yeah. So that took me a while to get over. I'm not even gonna lie. Actually, what got me over that was I actually gave the eulogy at my mom's funeral because at that time I was actually serving as a youth pastor.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and so I knew my mom would want me to give it. I didn't want to do it, but I know my mom would want me to. So I actually, and, uh, and as I'm sure everybody can tell, I'm not one of these people that's ever short of words. I've never really been a stranger. I'll talk to anybody. But
I'm kind of the
when
same way.
so when I but when it came time to give my mom's eulogy, I had no idea what I was going to say. No idea. And uh, until the night before her funeral, and well, actually it was like the morning of a funeral, like 3 o'clock in the morning. Uh, I was woke up, and I tell everybody I was woke up by God, because when I woke up, I was told word for word what I was supposed to say at the eulogy at the funeral, and that's exactly what I said. I didn't
Now, was
question
that
if that's what.
was that from your mom? Your mom gave you
Yeah,
that,
that's
or
what. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
so the gist of it was, and I still hang on to this today. The gist of it was, my mom had suffered so much in her life. She was finally healthy. She was finally happy, and it was time for her to go home to God. Yeah, so that's what I hold on to, because we always talk about the use that my mom had. She lost 2 kids before she was 30, and
Wow.
you know, so it was just good to see her happy, and it was just time for her to go where she was happy. I had her for I, I had her for 29 years. It was just time for her to go to the other two, Adam and Heather. So, and the interesting thing is, Heather was my older sister. I never met Heather. She died at like 6 months, and then I was my mom. This just shows you how much things have changed since those days. So my mom and my dad were told to have another kid to get over Heather dying. So that's how
Yeah.
that's how I got here. So even though I never knew Heather, for some reason, I was like in kindergarten, you know, first grade. In first grade, you talk about, you know, what you're going to do in the future, get married, have kids and stuff. Well, I promised my mom and my dad that if I ever had a daughter, I would name her Heather. That's actually my daughter's name. She's my
Oh,
youngest
well,
kid.
cool.
She's my
Cool.
youngest kid. She's my youngest kid and my only daughter. I got 3 sons, and then but her name's Heather. She actually turns 16 next month. I'm getting
Oh,
older.
wow.
So yeah. But I tell that story to tell this story. So even though it wasn't talked about a lot in my family about being able to, the dreams and
Oh, you're freezing up. Hey, yeah, you're freezing up. I can't see you, Ken.
there we go. Dream about
Oh, there you go. Oh,
dreams
there you
and
are.
yeah, go back about dreams and stuff coming true. My mom used to have the same thing, and she actually had dreams of Heather. Uh, I mean, she told me this. She told me these stories all the time. She would have dreams of Heather, and so she would always say, and she stopped having dreams of Heather the day that she found out that she was pregnant with me. I ended up being twins, but they didn't know that until we were born. But
Oh, wow.
but the day that she found out that she was pregnant, she had her last dream. And, so I don't know all the story, because obviously I wasn't born there. But everybody blames the doctor for Heather dying.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Back in those days, you didn't have practice or whatever, So my mom said when she had dreams about Heather, Heather was always older, like 3 or 4 years old, and she's beautiful, and which makes sense because everybody in my family, I mean, good looking people run in my family. We have one cousin that's kind of ugly, and there's so. So anyway, when she had these dreams of Heather, he's about 3 or 4, and it was beautiful. So the last dream that she had, Heather looked at her and she said, "Mommy, I understand that you don't need me anymore because you got a new baby." She's like, "But do me one favor, don't have the same damn doctor." So
Well,
so
there you go.
so that's interesting anyway. And then, like I said, uh, then we have me and Kurt, we're twin brothers. I'm the oldest. I'm 2 minutes older. I always told everybody that I got the looks growing up, but he got the brains, so that's okay. But then 7 years later, when when my mom got with my stepdad, she had another set of twins, which were my younger brothers, Adam and Aaron, and Adam died too. Adam died.
Oh, wow.
They call it SIDS, but SIDS is just what they label it when they don't know what causes it. To
Right,
me,
right, right.
to me, it was because of Larry's alcohol and drug abuse. But I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, so yeah, so and like you were talking about your aunt. Uh, you said that your mom believed in you, and you told her that you showed you. That's kind of the way my mom was. I mean, she didn't. We didn't necessarily discuss it, and she didn't really know how to encourage my gift. But she believed me, and we would at least give me a yeah, I believe you. So yeah, so let's
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about the book, and then we'll get off here. Let's talk about the living room. So I was fascinated with the living room because I had a similar thing about just something felt off about the living room. So you want to tell that story, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, it was just it was I used the room that I didn't like at the time is actually my living room, and now it's like my regular room. I'm in there every day. It's my regular parlor. But back when I was a kid, it was one of those rooms that my mother was Italian, and so it was one of those rooms where there was a couch, two chairs, a couple end tables, and that was it. And it basically had plastic on it, and we never used the room, and unless it was a Christmas time, we'd put the tree in there, or they had a bunch of friends coming over to get drunk with them, having highballs or whatever that they used to have, and they'd have their get-togethers or whatever. But so that room was always dark, and every time I went by there, I went by the entrance to that room, or it kind of open in my dining room and living room was kind of open, and then the stairs go up in the middle of the house. But anytime I went up the stairs, I just never looked in that room. Every time I did, I always felt like there was something watching me, or when you look in the dark, if you sit there and close your eyes, and if you're watching, try this at home. Close your eyes, and you'll see how dark it is now. And then put your hand in front of your eyes. It gets darker, even with your eyes closed. So that's what I saw. I saw like dark in the room, but then I saw darker in a space. And come to find out later on, and it's in the book, some friends and stuff, we'd see shadow figures in that room. But at the time, I didn't even know what a shadow figure was. I just, I had no idea. But I know that I just didn't like that room.
Yeah, the room that I had the same similar experience was in my Mimo and Papa's house again, which they lived in Carroll, Illinois. I don't know how much you know about Carroll, Illinois, but Carroll, Illinois is actually a real life ghost town.
I didn't know that.
In the 50s and 60s, it was about 40,000 people, where they had racial riots. And the racial riots completely destroyed the town. It's about 2,000. It claims 2,000 people, but I don't even think it has that many. And like all the buildings are still there. Like Al Capone had a headquarters in there in the 40s and 30s, 40s. But that's how big. That's how significant it used to be. So these buildings are still there. All these buildings are still there. They're just abandoned. So like the hospital there has been abandoned since 1988. So it's just a ghost town. So anyway, my grandparents they had a full basement, which for the people who don't know what a full basement is, a full basement is a basement with living space. Like it had a full apartment, bathroom, living room, bedroom, everything. And so apparently that apartment was the first place I technically ever lived. Because when I came home from the hospital, that's where my mom and dad lived at the time. So that was where, after we moved out, moved to Paducah, my dad's brother moved in there, and he was a big political guy. He actually worked on Jimmy Carter's campaign. So
Oh, wow.
all Jimmy Carter's campaign posters, all in the. Matter of fact, my uncle ended up being mayor and getting President Clinton to come to Carroll twice and stuff. So I mean, he was big into politics. So that growing up, that's all that was in there was his political stuff. But something always told me that something besides those posters was in that basement. You know, and obviously I had free reign at my grandparents' house. You know, I could do whatever I wanted to, but I would not go into that. Uh, Even during the day, you know, it was just one of those things. I always, like you said, I just always felt like something was watching me. And by this time, I had learned that I had abilities. So if I felt like something was watching me, I assumed something was actually watching me. So I avoided it.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, and it's kind of funny. Uh, I don't know, not necessarily funny, but funny, interesting.
Funny, weird.
People
Yeah.
ask me what like as a kid with my abilities, and I tell them actually it's a lot like Sixth Sense. If you've ever seen the movie Sixth Sense and remember it, you know how he always saw things trying to hurt him or whatever. That's the way it was as a kid. I always thought things were coming after me. You know, eventually I learned that really they were just trying to talk to me. But as a kid, they scared me. Uh, I
Yeah.
wish I had I wish I had somebody to teach me to build it. But so yeah, so yeah, I definitely get that. That's like the place me and my team are investigating tomorrow. It's in Bristol, outside of Bristol, Tennessee. It's called the Urine Shrine, and the Urine Shrine is an interesting place. Um, it's a safe place for any kind of practices. So they allow witchcraft, they allow voodoo, they allow everything. So you have all that energy mixed in there all together. Uh, we actually, me and my team lead, Jill, we actually investigated it back a couple minutes ago. I got to be part of the Rocky Mountain Terror event down in Kingston, Tennessee. So while we were there, we got to do an investigation at the shrine. And what I tell people is, with the way my abilities work is, I make it a safe place for people to communicate with me. Most of the time that we're scared, as long as I remember to set those boundaries up. So
Yeah.
we were down at the shrine. And the shrine has the actual witches circle where they allow practice. So beside, just outside of the witches circle, it's an actual witch's grave that got transplanted to the shrine because the family asked them to put it there because at the cemetery that it was at, it kept getting vandalized. So
Wow.
so there's actual, not like most witches, which not really witches. This is actually a verified witch from the family. Their grave is there, so it's just a cool place. So anyway, so we're there. It's kind of a public investigation, which I don't really do public investigations because it kind of was, but it was being conducted by some of my good friends. One of the guys who was running it was Jimmy Ricker for Outlaw Paranormal. Jimmy's a really good friend of mine. Well, we're out there and we're doing they decided to do the Estes method around the well, uh, fun fact about me is I'm not the guy to do the blindfold and the headphones for the Estes method because everybody tries to talk to me at one time. Well,
Yeah.
Jimmy decides that I need to be the one doing the Estes method. Well, obviously, I'm not going to say no because we're in front of a bunch of people, and I'm not going to be that guy in front of everybody. So I put on the headset, and as soon as we put on the headset, I get like 20 voices time overwhelming me, and so that's how my ability works. I'm going, I actually had to remove myself from the witches circle and go recenter myself in front of the bonfire before I could go back. So,
Oh wow.
so let's do something. I think this is going to be fun with you. I usually do two speed, two lightning rounds, two speed rounds, whatever you want to
Okay.
call them. So the first one is we're going to, and after this we'll wrap up. But the first one is we're going to talk about the different kinds of hauntings, the different kinds of ghosts, whatever you want to say, and you just tell me if you ran into that kind of spirit and what your opinion is, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So we'll start out with a residual haunting or residual spirit.
Yeah. So definitely, I've seen that, and I've seen where I've seen spirits go by, and they don't notice me, and I know that they're going about their daily life. They don't communicate. They don't nothing. They just do what they do. And I tried to explain to somebody one time what a residual haunting is because they didn't know, and I'm like, it's it's like watching a tape of your life from the time you were born to the time you die, and once it hits the end, it rewinds and it plays again, and they just keeps doing that, and that's what you might see.
A
So
glitch in the matrix. It's a
yeah,
glitch in the
exactly.
matrix.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So traditionally, a residual haunting is considered the most common. Um, so, I mean, obviously, I've had experiences with residual. The the story that I usually tell, which is like my wow residual story, is that there's a place here in Paducah that we I've investigated actually a dozen times, and it's called the Metropolitan Hotel Metropolitan, and the Hotel Metropolitan during when it was actually a hotel was the African American hotel during segregation. So
Oh,
in
okay.
its heyday,
Yeah.
in its heyday, it was all the musicians stayed there. Ike and Tina, Nat King Cole, they all stayed there. All the athletes, all the people from the Denver League, all the Globetrotters, it was just a place to stay in Paducah. Paducah, it's a significant town in Western Kentucky. North to south, it's the biggest city between St. Louis and Nashville.
Okay.
So, so, um, so if you take I-24 from St. Louis to Nashville, you go through Paducah, and it's the biggest town in between. And so one of the famous ghosts there is the odor. So the story goes, she's an interesting character anyway, because first of all, she was a black business owner. There wasn't very many black business owners. Second of all, she was a woman business owner, where there wasn't very many women business owners. So, and
Yeah.
then she was a black woman business owner, which is definitely not her. So she wanted to open the hotel forever. She tried to talk her husband into it, but he would never do it. So when he died, she actually used his name to open the hotel. So
Oh,
she's an
wow.
interesting
Okay.
character. I just said that to show the depth of her character. Well, the the uh, the story is at 11:01. I don't know why at 11:01, but at 11:01 she walks down the staircase. That's all she does is just walk down
Huh.
the staircase. So, like I said, I've investigated the Metropolitan 12 times, 13 times actually, because the last time was 13. So, um, so every time I've investigated, I've shut down investigations at 10:54. So everybody can come down at the bottom
Just
of
to
the
watch it.
stairs, just see if we can catch it. I never caught the residual until my 11th investigation there. That investigation, we actually had a team. We actually had a film team from Belmont University in Nashville. They were joining us on location that day. That was a odd investigation. There was both bad and good. So we had like 3 college age girls trying to conduct a serious investigation, and they would start just dancing in the middle of the hallway when we're trying to do an EVP session. So, so it was both.
That,
It was
that's
both.
hopeful.
both good and bad. So,
Yeah.
but so when we got down, when we set up the camera at, at 11:01, we actually captured on camera, and the curtain even moved when she walked by. So we actually caught it on camera. So that was cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's my residual story. So let's move on to the next one, which is
Okay.
everybody's favorite, intelligent hauntings.
Well, I've had plenty of those. My father, my mother, my uncle Arthur that we talked about. Um, there's a couple other stories in the book, which I don't want to give away because we want people to grab that. But but those are most of them. I would say probably shit. I don't know. Maybe 60 to 70% that I've seen have been intelligent that have either tried to communicate with me or communicated somehow, or physically um, moving stuff, answering questions, dowsing rods type of thing. So that's the ones that I usually get more so than any other.
Well, obviously, that's what we want. I had a guest last season that made the point, and this is how I've been investigating since. And she made the point that even though people have always said that residual is the most common, really intelligence is probably the most common, like you said, because with intelligence we actually know they're there. They're actually communicating with it. A
Right,
residual,
exactly.
a residual, you can look back as anything. Maybe it was something, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just deja vu. But with an intelligent, you actually know they're there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So my favorite, at least right now, it might change this week, but my favorite intelligent hunting story goes back to my birthday this year. Like I said, we went to the mysterious Monroe House up in Indiana, which is one of
Okay.
the most infamous locations right now. So we went up there on the 18th of January. My birthday's actually the 19th of January, but we had to go on a Saturday. So we was up there on the 18th midnight when it actually became the 19th. When it actually became my birthday, I decided to go down to the basement. But the basement is where the supposed demonic, malicious spirit lives. So I decided I was going to do a solo in the basement. So I'm down
Okay.
there. I'm down there, and I have all my equipment set up. I have my Paratech, my Apple box, videotaping it. I got my voice recorder. We got everything going. So I start talking to the spirit because, like you said earlier, when I investigate, I talk with the spirit just like I'm talking to you, and just having a conversation, be respectful. So I'm talking to the spirit, and the first question I ask is, I ask him, I said, did you die here? Vague, but just to get an answer. So the Apple box went off, and the Apple box said yes. So I was like, cool, cool. I was like, so the next question I asked was, did you die in the house? Because at the Monroe house, that's an important question because they really don't know if it's the land or the house. So,
Yeah, that makes
so I,
sense. That makes sense.
so
Yeah.
I was like, did you die in the house? And again, the Apple box said yes. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, so now I want to find out how you died. I was like, is that okay? The Apple box said yes. I was like, okay. I was like, were you physically killed? Were you strangled, stabbed, beat to death? The Apple box said no. I was like, okay. I was like, so were you killed by a weapon? Were you shot? And again, the Apple box said no. So my exact response was, I was like, I'm a little bit confused now. I'm like, you tell me that you died in the house. The Apple box said yes, but you didn't die by by you wasn't beat to death or shot. And it said yes. So I was like, okay, so we're going to do it a little bit different this time. I was like, can you tell me how you died? And then I got on the Paratech, I got fire.
Oh,
The
the house
response is
caught on
fire.
fire. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so the history of the history of the Monroe House is it's been down at least 5 times. So that was so that verifies
Wow.
the answer. So and I
Oh,
like
that's
that because I didn't. I didn't mention fire, but that was what he said was fire.
Right. Right. And then
So,
you corroborated it by seeing that there was
yeah,
fires there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about this. This is an interesting one. So let's talk about poltergeist activity. What's your take on poltergeist activity?
I had a couple instances with that, with just stuff moving, stuff falling on it, different things here. I had a picture frame get thrown. I've had one thing I forgot to put in the book, which was interesting, was lights blowing out. I was actually walking up my stairs and I had the hallway light blew out, scared the shit out of me. I ran into the other room because I wasn't expecting that. It was a bang and the door and shit. So I definitely believe that there is poltergeist. I believe that that's something that definitely exists, and a lot of people don't realize that the poltergeist stands for noisy ghost. So, but yeah, I've definitely I've seen that happen. Yeah.
So poltergeist is an interesting thing because to me, and I'm like you. I've seen it happen. I've had stuff thrown at me and everything. So yeah, so the thing is, we need to come up with an actual definition of a poltergeist because really a poltergeist could just be a angry intelligent spirit.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think every poltergeist is mad. I think it could be somebody that's actually just trying to get your attention. Like,
Right.
like I had a shampoo bottle thrown at me while I was in the shower. Thank God it didn't hit the family jewels, but but thankfully but it hit me in the leg, and somebody threw that. It wasn't me, so it definitely it could be just somebody trying to get attention, saying, hey, listen, I'm here. I want to get it. It could be something that's angry or maybe aggravated. Maybe that's a better word. Like somebody's aggravated because they want to try to try to talk to you or get your attention to tell you something, and they can't, and for whatever reason, and then they get mad.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. And that's the same thing. Like when you talk about like asylums and stuff earlier, everybody always assumes if like somebody grabs you, they're angry. That may be the only way they know to communicate with you. Especially if as a kid, at asylums you have a lot of kids that can't speak, can't see. They're deaf mutes. So the only way they know how to get is to grab you. So yeah,
tug on your shirt or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it could definitely be the same thing with poltergeist. And I like the idea. I like the thing that you said about that our spirit. Everybody always assumes everything's angry. Sometimes they're just aggravated. I had a. We recently went to the Glen House in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I had a spirit that told me that they were pissed. That's what they said. They were pissed. That's actually what they said. And come to find out, the questioning, the spirit that we were talking to was apparently Sally Glenn's ex-husband, and Sally Glenn actually left her husband, went to Hollywood, slept with a married man, came back, divorced her husband, went back to Hollywood and married like 5 different people. I was like, I would be pissed too if my wife became a slut. I mean,
Yeah.
So yeah.
No doubt.
So yeah, you just have to listen. All right. So the next one we're going to talk about is a malicious spirit, and I want to explain to anybody that's actually still listening to me. A malicious spirit is different than a demonic spirit. A malicious spirit is usually just an angry spirit, or like I like to say, if somebody was a dickhead when they were alive, they're going to be a dickhead when they're dead. So let's discuss a malicious spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that happen too, where, and there's a story in my book that it's 3 chapters long, but it actually lasted about 10 years, and I don't know if the guy was a dickhead in life or whatever, but I think he was a dickhead to me because he wanted something and I couldn't help him, and because I couldn't help him, he got more and more angry and more aggravated with me, and he pulled me out of bed one time, and I actually had finger mark bruises on my arms. Pulled me right out of bed, and because I'm like, you don't exist, dude. You don't exist. I thought I was having a dream. I'm like, you're not real. and no, he was real. He made sure that I knew that he was real, and he yanked me out of bed, threw me down the stairs, pushed me down the stairs one time. Um, and let me know. And we've made peace now, and I'm sure he's still around here, but I haven't heard or seen or had a inkling that maybe he did move on. I don't know, but yeah, I've definitely had a couple things like that happen where I was like, what the hell? What was that? I actually had to say out loud, don't hurt me and my wife. It was, she wasn't actually my wife at the time. Well, she became later on, but I'm like, don't hurt us. I'll listen to you. Tell me what you need me to know. Whatever. And once I agreed that he did exist, he calmed down a little bit, for the most part, but yeah. So I mean, I've definitely had that happen. Yeah, there's no doubt. But again, I don't know if he's actually like malicious, like intentional, like say, in life he was a murderer or an axe murderer. I don't know if it was that or if it was just really angry and aggravated because I wasn't listening to him because I didn't acknowledge him the way he wanted me to acknowledge him. So once I did that though, it slowed down a little bit.
So my favorite malicious spirit story is the place that is known to be violently haunted. I mean, so the guy in this story, he was a dickhead. He was at a hotel. It was at a transit hotel. The name of the place is Anderson Hotel. You can't investigate anymore. But so he lived there. He drunk himself to the point that he hung himself in the closet. And like so, but he, like I said, he was a dickhead in life. He actually ran prostitutes in and out of the hotel.
Oh, okay.
So we were investigating it, and we rotated. When I was there, the only thing that happened to me personally in that room was I decided to go into the closet where he hung himself. As soon as I stepped into the closet, my energy was drained and I hit the ground.
Wow.
So that's what happened to me. Dennis had to actually pull me out of the closet. So we rotated. But before we rotated,
you might not want to say that too loud. It's like they pulled you out of the closet. But you don't get it. Okay. Anyway.
So we were getting ready to rotate, and for this investigation, we ended up dividing up boy and girl. It was significant, but I'm not going to go into the story because I'm trying to get to the point here. So
yeah,
I radioed down to the girls, and I was like, I know you girls are getting ready to come up here. I was like, but I'm going to warn you. We found out the guy's name was John. I was like, I'm going to warn you, John does not like females. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I was like, but as the lead investigator, I feel like I'm not doing my job if I don't warn you. So we rotated anyway. And as the girls came upstairs, my niece is on my team. And at that time, she was 19. This was almost 3 years ago now. She was 19. So as she comes up the stairs, she decides to use the prostitute angle to get communication started. This is still the best EVP I ever captured. I still have. So she comes upstairs and she's like, I'm 19 and cute. Can I get a job? The response was immediately, and the response was $50 and free room.
Really? Wow, that's crazy.
So and then it escalated from there. All three of the girls kept getting touched provocatively, like.
Yeah.
And then Tiffany ended up getting grabbed by her private area.
Yeah.
At that point, I ended the investigation because it became a safety issue. And
right.
That's my malicious spirit, and that was definitely a malicious spirit. So let's go on to the last kind, which is our controversial kind. This is the one that the YouTubers like to say all the time, so they get more likes. But let's talk about a demonic haunting.
I don't know if I've ever had a demonic type of haunting. I I can't think of anything that I would consider demonic, because anything that I had that happened that was bad or negative, so to speak, I think was more, again, the poltergeist thing, or somebody that was aggravated and stuff like that. I don't think I've actually had, a demon or any kind of, Linda Blair, pea soup, head spinning around type of, exorcist type of thing. I don't think I've ever encountered that. I think, I'd like to think that most of the stuff that I had, with the few, were all either family, friends, or for a purpose. Like, that guy had a purpose, and I found out the purpose later on, of why he was doing what he did. It's in the book. Read the book. Hold on. It's in the book. Read the book. So, but I don't think I ever had or at least that I know of, was a demonic type of spirit. So I don't think I've encountered that. Sorry for the fact that you're not going to get extra clicks or likes, but that's just being honest. Just being honest.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm a trained demonologist, but and so I'll say that demonic spirits are out there, but you're talking about the minority. You're talking about less than 1% of all activity is actually demonic. I've never I've never investigated anything that I would say was demonic. I have 2 cases in 5 years that maybe somebody besides me may say it's demonic, but I don't say they are. I mean, one was really interesting. It's in my book, so when my book comes out, you can buy my book and read it. I'm not even going to tell the story.
I will. I can't wait.
So, and like I said, obviously the name of my book is Don't Buy Generic Batteries, and it's probably not a demon, because most of the time it's not a demon. I know the YouTubers like to say demon all the time because it gets some more likes, but it's just not true. And actually, they do more harm than good, because real investigators, it makes it harder on us, because locations are now not letting people investigate because of all that. And so, yeah, so stop the demon nonsense. And, first of all, for record, none of you actually want to see a true demonic haunting anyway. And if you do see a true demonic haunting, you cannot handle it. You have to be like Bishop Long or somebody to handle a true demonic haunting. So, Colonel Kobe, stop saying everything's a demon. It's not. That's my rant.
That's a good rant. I agree with you.
So,
I agree with you.
So we're actually over 2 hours. So I'm not even going to do the next slide. What I am going to do is hold your book back up, tell everybody how to get your book, and then we will end.
All right. So here it is. Drumming Up the Dead. Drumming Up the Dead, my paranormal experiences. You can get it. You can Google it. Do a Google search. It's on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble online. It's on BAM, which is Books A Million. It's on Walmart online. For some reason, they didn't put a picture of the book cover, but it's there. Target, and again, it's basic. Go to my website again. Just my name that you see on the screen, johnboomergrenier.com. Go to the store, and there's links to basically almost every country that you can order it from, and you can get it from Amazon in Japan and South America, whatever however you want to do it. But you can get it; it's available everywhere, and hopefully that you'll pick it up and read it and enjoy it. And if you do, please do a review for it, and good or bad or ugly. I mean, it's fine. Be honest, but I've had nothing but good reviews, so I'm hoping that's the way it goes. But you never know. But check it out and leave a review, because and for actually, honestly, for any author, leave a review of their book, because that's really what sells the books to somebody else, that lets them know whether the book is good, whether you liked it, or whether you thought it was crap. So the reviews are important. So, but again, Drumming Up the Dead, my paranormal experiences, and hope you like it. And hopefully down the road I'll end up doing another one. I like, if I do the Trans Allegheny thing, we go back there to do that. I'd like to write a book, about that experience, and if more stuff happens between then, maybe Drumming Up the Dead too. I don't know. I don't know if enough stuff's going to happen in time, because, like I said, I had about 50 years for that book, so I don't know if there'd be enough for that, but maybe we'll see. If not, there'll be a music one.
I would say I've read a lot of paranormal books in my life. I've read several of them for the show, but that's just my thing. I don't read a lot of books, but the ones I do are either usually Civil War history or paranormal books. And yours is definitely one of the, I would say, one of the top 4 I've ever read, especially as far as
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm actually buying a copy, so I have an actual copy. So
thank you. I appreciate that. And and I was very thankful, because a friend of mine who used to be, she doesn't really like to be related to it anymore, but wrote the foreword to my book. My friend Lisa, and she was on the Ghost Hunter show, like really early seasons, and I told her I was writing a book about it. Well, actually, I told her and her husband, who Ray, who actually does a horror magazine, and so they encouraged me to do this, and they probably about 10 years ago when I said I wanted to do it. So I want to thank her too, Lisa, for writing the forward to the book, and because again, she's got degrees and stuff, and she still does paranormal stuff up here in New England. So yeah, I mean, the book came out better than I thought it was, because like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea, and it just and it was research and everything. So I'm glad people like it. It didn't end up in the the trash, the circular file, as they say.
I really enjoyed it, and so the person that's writing the forward for my book is Aaron G. Thompson. Most people know him for 28 Days Haunted, and but
okay.
He's actually a legit. He's been investigating for like 25 years. I actually hate that everybody only knows him for 28 Days Haunted, but because he's a good guy. But yeah. So anyway, we'll stay in touch. Hopefully, you'll be down here for my expo next year. Like I said, so far we got Joe Freaky going to be down here. So that's a good somebody. That's somebody good to be.
That's good company. That's good company. Yeah.
Matter of fact, Joe Freaky's going to be my guest on the podcast next week. So
nice.
you're actually, me and Joe we actually share the same agent. We actually have the same booking agent. So that's interesting. Not that I think I need a booking agent, because I'm a nobody, but apparently some people want me to speak at their events. So hey,
nobody is ever a nobody. You're always a somebody. No matter who you are, you're always a somebody. So
that's right.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on, Ken, and I'll definitely tune in next week, because I want to check that one out. And thank you again. I appreciate it. And definitely keep in touch.
I will keep it, because I got a couple projects that I'd like to get you on, but we'll discuss that later off camera, because I've kept you on here long enough today. Thanks everybody for joining, and we will see everybody next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. As we welcome Joe Freaky. Until then, everybody, live paranormal.